The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my downtown office. I should have expected it, really. My sister Victoria had always been the golden child, the one who married well, lived in the right neighborhood and kept the family name polished. I was the black sheep who disappeared for 5 years and came back driving a 15-year-old Honda. "Hi, this is Jennifer Morrison from Elite Event Planning." The voice was crisp, professional and dripping with barely concealed disdain. "I'm calling about Victoria Henderson's wedding on Saturday." "Yes." I settled back in my leather chair, already sensing where this was going. "Well, there's been a situation. The bride's family has reviewed the guest list and frankly, they feel that certain attendees might not fit the aesthetic they're going for." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "This is a $300,000 wedding at the Grandview Manor. The guest list includes judges, CEOs, politicians. They need everyone to look appropriate." I could hear voices in the background and then Victoria's laugh, that high-pitched giggle she'd perfected in high school. "Tell her we don't need poor relatives making us look bad," Victoria called out, clearly intending for me to hear. Jennifer cleared her throat. "So we're going to have to uninvite you. I'm sure you understand. This isn't personal, it's just business. Image matters in these circles." "I understand completely," I said quietly, my voice steady. "Thank you for calling." "Oh good, I was worried you'd make a scene. Have a nice day." The line went dead. I sat there for a moment staring at my phone. Through my office windows I could see the city sprawling below me. A city where I own more real estate than most people could imagine. The irony wasn't lost on me. 5 years ago, I'd left town with nothing but a computer science degree and a burning desire to prove myself. My family had written me off completely when I refused to work for Dad's insurance company. "You'll be back," he'd said. "The real world will eat you alive." Instead, I'd built something extraordinary. Cloud Vault Technologies had started in my studio apartment, but now it was valued at $2.8 billion. We revolutionized data storage for major corporations, and somehow I'd done it all while my family thought I was struggling to make rent. But that wasn't even the best part. 3 years ago, when I started making serious money, I'd begun acquiring properties. Not flashy purchases. I worked through shell companies and holding firms. I wanted to build something solid, something that couldn't be taken away. Real estate was permanent. Real estate was power. The Grandview Manor had been my first major acquisition. Then the Riverside Country Club. The Crystal Palace Ballroom. One by one, I'd purchased every premium venue in the city through my company, Pinnacle Hospitality Group. 47 properties in total, from intimate garden settings to grand ballrooms that hosted governors and celebrities. The beautiful irony? Victoria was getting married at a venue I owned. I picked up my phone and called Marcus, my property manager. "Hey, it's Alex. I need you to do something for me." "Sure, boss. What's up?" "The Henderson wedding this Saturday at Grandview Manor. I want you to review the contract carefully. Find any violation, any reason to terminate. Is there a problem? Let's just say the client isn't meeting our standards for respectful treatment of all guests." Marcus chuckled. "I'll find something. These society weddings always have contract violations. Want me to handle it quietly?" "No," I said, an idea forming. "I want to handle this one personally." The next few days passed quickly. I learned from my sources, and yes, when you own half the upscale venues in the city, you have sources everywhere, that Victoria's wedding was going to be the social event of the season. 300 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, flowers flown in from Ecuador, and a champagne tower that cost more than most people's cars. She'd invited everyone who mattered in the city's social circles. Politicians, judges, CEOs, the old money families that ran everything behind the scenes. She was marrying Harrison Phillips III, whose father owned the largest law firm in the state. This wedding was her coronation, her final step into the aristocracy she'd always craved. And she'd uninvited me because I didn't fit the aesthetic. On Friday evening, I put on my best casual clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, and drove my old Honda to Grandview Manor. I wanted to see the setup to remind myself exactly what was at stake. The place was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from hand-painted ceilings, marble floors gleamed under soft lighting, and the gardens were perfectly manicured. Staff bustled around setting up for tomorrow's event. My staff, though none of them knew I was the real owner. Excuse me, I called to Jennifer Morrison, who was directing the flower arrangements. Could I speak with you for a moment? She turned, her expression immediately souring when she recognized me. What are you doing here? You're not invited. I know. I wanted to talk to you about that. There's nothing to discuss. You don't belong here. This is a sophisticated event for sophisticated people. She looked me up and down with obvious disgust. You'd stick out like a sore thumb. I see. And whose decision was that? The family's, obviously. Your sister was very clear about the guest list requirements. Just then Victoria appeared in the main hallway, dressed in designer clothes and barking orders at the catering staff. When she saw me, her face twisted with annoyance. Alex, what are you doing here? Jennifer, I thought you handled this. I did, Jennifer said quickly. She just showed up. Victoria walked over, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Look, I know this is hard to understand, but this wedding is important. Harrison's family will be here along with everyone who matters in this city. I can't have you there in your thrift store clothes, driving up in that piece of junk car. I understand your concerns, I said quietly. Do you? Because this isn't just about tomorrow. This is about my future, my children's future. The connections I make at this wedding will define the rest of my life. She softened slightly as if she was doing me a favor. Maybe we can do lunch next week? Just the two of us. That's very kind of you. Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. She turned back to Jennifer. Make sure security knows she's not on the list. I watched them walk away, planning their perfect evening, their perfect future. Victoria had always been beautiful, always been charming, always been everything our parents wanted in a daughter. I'd been the weird one, the one who preferred computers to people, the one who asked too many questions. But tomorrow they were going to learn something about the family black sheep. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. I spent the early hours in my home office, a sprawling space in my penthouse that overlooked the river. From here I could actually see Grandview Manor in the distance, its gardens already busy with wedding preparations. 10 a.m. I made the call. Marcus, it's time. Contract termination? Full termination. Effective immediately. On what grounds? Discriminatory guest policies. Our contract clearly states that venues cannot exclude guests based on socioeconomic status or appearance. It's a liability issue. Understood. I'll handle the paperwork and notify the client. No, I said. I'll handle the notification personally. The wedding was scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. At precisely 4 p.m., as the guests began arriving and the final preparations were being made, I drove to Grandview Manor. This time I wasn't in my Honda. I was in my Bentley, wearing a custom Italian suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The parking lot was full of luxury cars. Mercedes, BMWs, Porsches, and more than a few Ferraris. The city's elite had indeed come out for Victoria's big day. I parked near the entrance and walked through the main doors like I owned the place. Which of course I did. Jennifer Morrison was in the main ballroom, making last-minute adjustments to the centerpieces. When she saw me, her face went pale. What are you doing here? And how did you? She stared at my suit, my car keys, clearly trying to process what she was seeing. I'm here to discuss the wedding, I said calmly. You can't be here. Security, she called out. That won't be necessary, I said, pulling out my phone. I have something to show you first. Victoria appeared from the bridal suite, still in her preparation robe but with her hair and makeup done. Alex, what the hell are you doing here? Jennifer, call security now. Actually, I said, holding up my hand, before you do that, I think you should see this. I opened my phone and showed them the screen. It displayed the Pinnacle Hospitality Group website, with my photo prominently featured as CEO and founder. Jennifer squinted at the screen. I don't understand. What does this have to do with anything? Pinnacle Hospitality Group owns this venue, I said quietly. I own this venue. The color drained from Victoria's face. That's impossible. You drive a Honda. You live in that tiny apartment. I drive a Honda because I like it. I live simply because I choose to. But I own 47 premium venues in this city, including this one. Jennifer was frantically scrolling through her own phone. This can't be right. Our contract is with, oh my God, Pinnacle Hospitality Group. I'm the owner, yes. And as of 1 hour ago, your contract has been terminated. Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. What do you mean terminated? Your wedding planner violated our anti-discrimination policy. We don't allow clients to exclude guests based on their perceived social status or economic circumstances. You can't do this. Victoria screamed. My wedding is in 2 hours. Everyone is already here. I can and I have. You have 30 minutes to vacate the premises. Jennifer was now frantically calling someone on her phone. Sir, we have an emergency situation. The venue just... What do you mean there's nothing you can do? Check the contract. There has to be something. She hung up and turned to me with desperation in her eyes. Please be reasonable. This wedding cost $300,000. The deposits alone. There are 300 guests arriving. We have judges, senators, the mayor. Then you should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough for your event. Victoria was now crying, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. Alex, please. I'm your sister. I made a mistake, okay? I was wrong. But you can't destroy my wedding over this. I'm not destroying anything, I said calmly. I'm simply exercising my rights as a property owner. You made it very clear that certain people don't belong at sophisticated events. I agree. People who discriminate against family don't belong at my venues. Harrison Phillips III appeared looking panicked. What's going on? Victoria, why are you crying? The venue is kicking us out, Victoria sobbed. My brother owns it and he's canceling our wedding. Harrison looked at me with confusion. You're Alex? But Victoria said you were. I mean, she said you were having financial difficulties. Victoria says a lot of things, I replied. Most of them aren't true. By now a crowd was gathering. Other vendors, early guests, family members who'd arrived to help with final preparations. I could see my parents near the entrance, dressed in their finest clothes, looking bewildered by the commotion. Ladies and gentlemen, I called out, my voice carrying across the ballroom. I'm Alexander Morrison, owner of Grandview Manor and Pinnacle Hospitality Group. Due to contractual violations, this event has been cancelled. You have 30 minutes to gather your belongings and vacate the premises. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. My father pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger. Alex, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is your sister's wedding. The sister who uninvited me because I wasn't good enough for her guest list? Mom appeared next to Dad, looking between Victoria and me with growing understanding. Uninvited you? Victoria, what is he talking about? It wasn't personal, Victoria said weakly. The wedding planner said. The wedding planner said exactly what you told her to say, I interrupted. That poor relatives would make you look bad. The crowd was now listening to every word. I could see judges, politicians, and society leaders all watching this family drama unfold. Victoria's humiliation was complete and public. But Alex, Mom said, looking at my suit, my confident demeanor, we thought you were struggling. You never said. I never said anything because you never asked. You assumed I was failing because I didn't follow Dad's plan for my life. Dad was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You own this place? How is that possible? I built a technology company. We revolutionized data storage for Fortune 500 companies. The company is now worth $2.8 billion. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Harrison's father, a distinguished man in his 60s, stepped forward. Alexander Morrison? Of CloudVault Technologies? You're the Alexander Morrison? Yes, sir. My firm handles some of your corporate contracts. I had no idea you were. This is Victoria's brother. The irony was perfect. The very people Victoria was trying to impress already knew who I was. In the business world, I was somebody. In my family's eyes, I'd been nobody. Victoria was now sitting on a chair, her wedding dress spread around her like a deflated balloon. Alex, please. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll uninvite people instead. Just please don't cancel my wedding. The decision has been made, I said firmly. However, I do have a proposal. The crowd quieted, waiting. I own 47 venues in this city. You can have your pick of any of them free of charge for next Saturday. Same time, same vendors, same everything. But with one condition. Victoria looked up with desperate hope. Anything. Everyone gets invited. No exceptions. No guest list discrimination. No judgments based on cars or clothes or bank accounts. Yes, she said quickly. Yes, absolutely. And one more thing. You'll publicly apologize for your discrimination, and you'll make a donation to the City Community Center, a place that serves the people you thought weren't good enough for your wedding. Victoria nodded frantically. How much? The full cost of today's wedding. $300,000. Harrison's family exchanged glances. His father stepped forward again. Alexander, that's very generous of you. More generous than they deserve. Family is complicated, I said. But it's still family. As the crowd began to disperse and vendors started packing up, my parents approached me cautiously. Alex, Dad said quietly, I owe you an apology. We all do. I had no idea. You had no idea because you never asked what I was actually doing with my life. You just assumed I was failing because I wasn't doing what you wanted me to do. Mom was crying now. We're so proud of you. And so ashamed of ourselves. The question is, I said, what happens now? Do we keep pretending that success only looks one way? Or do we actually become a family that supports each other? Victoria finally stood up, her wedding dress rustling. She walked over to me with tears in her eyes. Alex, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was so worried about what everyone would think that I forgot what actually matters. What matters? That you're my brother. And that you've always been there for our family, even when we didn't deserve it. He was right about that. 3 years ago, when Dad's insurance company was struggling, a mysterious investor had bought out their debt and restructured their loans at favorable terms. That investor had been one of my shell companies. 2 years ago, when Mom needed expensive medical treatment, an anonymous benefactor had covered the costs. That had been me too. Last year, when Victoria's first engagement fell through and she was devastated, someone had anonymously sent her on a luxury vacation to Europe to recover. Also me. I'd been taking care of my family all along, just like I'd been successful all along. They just hadn't bothered to notice. Here's what's going to happen, I said, addressing all of them. Next Saturday, Victoria will have her wedding at the Crystal Palace Ballroom. It's actually nicer than this place with better acoustics for the orchestra. All the same vendors, all the same arrangements. And the conditions? Victoria asked. You'll invite everyone who was originally invited, plus everyone you uninvited or excluded. The community center donation will happen before the wedding. And going forward, this family stops judging people by their cars, their clothes, or their bank accounts. Deal, Victoria said immediately. One more thing, I added. I'm bringing a guest to the wedding. Of course. Who? I smiled. Jennifer Morrison, your former wedding planner. I'm offering her a job with my hospitality company. Seems like she needs to learn something about treating all people with respect. Jennifer, who had been standing nearby looking mortified, nearly fainted. You're offering me a job? After what I said. Everyone deserves a second chance to do better. But you'll start in customer service, learning to treat every client with dignity, regardless of their background. As I walked toward the exit, my family trailing behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Like I actually belonged with them. Not because I'd proven my worth through money, but because I'd finally shown them that worth wasn't measured by appearances. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Boss, the Crystal Palace is ready for next Saturday. Staff briefed on the inclusion requirements. Also, the community center called. They're overjoyed about the donation. I smiled and typed back, perfect. And Marcus? Make sure there's no VIP parking at the wedding. Everyone parks in the same lot. Even you, boss? Especially me. I'll be driving the Honda. Because some things were worth more than appearances. Some things like family who actually saw you for who you were worth everything. The wedding the following Saturday was beautiful. Victoria looked radiant, Harrison was beaming, and the guest list included everyone from senators to community center volunteers. I danced with my mother, talked business with my father, and even shared a laugh with Jennifer Morrison, who was already proving to be an excellent addition to my team. And yes, I drove the Honda. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be yourself, regardless of what anyone expects. As Victoria and Harrison drove away in their honeymoon car, she rolled down the window and called out to me, "Thank you for teaching me what really matters." I waved back, then got in my 15-year-old Honda and drove home to my penthouse, where I had a company to run and a city full of venues to manage. But for the first time in years, I also had a family who actually knew who I was. And that, I realized, was worth more than all 47 venues combined.